In May 1945, as Nazi Germany unconditionally surrendered, the once formidable Luftwaffe effectively ceased to exist almost overnight. The German Air Force, which had dominated European skies early in the war, was grounded by crippling fuel shortages, disrupted supply lines, and the collapse of its command structure. Thousands of aircraft, from piston engine fighters like the Messerschmitt Bf-109 and Focke-Wulf FW-190 to revolutionary jet-powered designs, were left abandoned on airfields across Europe, from Norway in the north to Austria in the south. Many remained intact, parked in rows as if awaiting orders that would never come, while others were damaged by Allied bombing or stripped for spare parts in the desperate final months. Key locations revealed the scale of this sudden standstill. In northern Germany, airfields at Flensburg and Lübeck held large concentrations of grounded planes. In Czechoslovakia, particularly around Prague, hangars housed late-war Messerschmitts, Heinkels, and experimental prototypes. The Luftwaffe's primary research facility at Rechlin yielded a treasure trove for advancing Allied forces, cutting-edge jet airframes, rocket-powered interceptors, wind tunnel models, and extensive technical documentation detailing Germany's pioneering work in jet propulsion and high-speed flight. The diversity of surviving machines astonished Allied personnel. Classic wartime staples like the Bf-109 and FW-190 stood alongside groundbreaking innovations, including the Arado R-234 jet reconnaissance bomber, the Heinkel, the 162 Volksjäger People's Fighter, and remnants of ambitious projects such as the forward-swept-wing Junkers Ju-287. Transport and utility types such as the reliable Junkers Ju-52 and multi-role Heinkel He-111 dotted fields in large numbers. Fuel starvation in the war's closing weeks had immobilized most units, leaving aircraft untouched and vulnerable. With the Luftwaffe's hierarchy in disarray, commanders surrendered piecemeal to advancing Allied armies, and ground crews often fled or were captured without destroying their equipment. Maintenance logs, fuel stocks, and parts inventories were incomplete or deliberately sabotaged. The Allied Control Commission swiftly imposed rigid controls. All German military aircraft were declared grounded, and unauthorized flights by German personnel were forbidden to prevent escapes, sabotage, or unauthorized use. Debates quickly arose among Allied leaders. Some viewed intact German aircraft as potential threats if left accessible, advocating immediate destruction. Others recognized their immense technological value for post-war research. From the earliest days of occupation, the disposition of these machines became intertwined with intelligence gathering, logistical challenges, and emerging geopolitical tensions. Allied efforts to capture and exploit advanced Luftwaffe technology. The Allies wasted no time in launching systematic operations to seize the most valuable German aviation assets. The United States acted decisively with Operation LUSTY, Luftwaffe secret technology, initiated on May 9, 1945, just one day after formal surrender. Directed by Colonel Harold E. Watson, specialized teams fanned out across Germany, Austria, and Czechoslovakia to identify, secure, and evaluate advanced aircraft and documentation. Watson's unit, affectionately known as Watson's Whizzers, included skilled pilots, engineers, and mechanics who located prize jets like multiple Messerschmitt Me-262 Schwalbe fighters at Lechfeld and Arado, R-234 bombers at Grove in Denmark. Valuable examples were either flown out under Allied pilots or disassembled for sea shipment to U.S. facilities such as Wright Field in Ohio and Freeman Field in Indiana. There, engineers dissected engines, airframes, and systems, gaining critical insights into swept wing aerodynamics, axial flow jet engines like the Junkers Jumo 004 and BMW 003, and advanced avionics that accelerated American jet programs. The British pursued a complementary initiative dubbed Operation Surgeon, emphasizing not only hardware but also human expertise. Teams from the Royal Aircraft Establishment targeted sites like Fossberg, Schleswig, Husum, and Rechlin, conducting interviews with German engineers and scientists while collecting blueprints and reports. Selected specialists were relocated to Britain for debriefing and collaboration. At RAF Farnborough, test pilots evaluated captured types, with particular interest in the lightweight He-162 for its potential influence on future light fighters and trainers. The Soviet Union mounted its own aggressive campaign through trophy brigades that overran factories and bases in eastern Germany, Thuringia, Saxony, Silesia, and Czechoslovakia. Major production lines, including Avia facilities in Prague and Messerschmitt assembly plants in Moravia, fell into Soviet hands. Aircraft, tooling, and personnel were transported eastward by rail for study near Moscow and Leningrad, directly informing early Soviet jet designs like the MiG-15. Rivalries emerged as the Allies vied for the rarest prototypes, leading to disputes over allocation in overlapping occupation zones. The Allied Control Council attempted coordination, but underlying frictions foreshadowed the Cold War. Former Luftwaffe personnel often assisted voluntarily or under duress, explaining complex systems and aiding flyable restorations. Comprehensive records, photographs, manuals, and flight data were compiled before final decisions on preservation or disposal. By 1946, these intensive collections concluded, with dozens of premier Luftwaffe aircraft distributed to the U.S., Britain, and USSR. The knowledge gained profoundly influenced the jet age, but the vast remainder faced a different fate: the systematic destruction of remaining Luftwaffe aircraft. With demilitarization a core Allied policy, the Control Council decreed by late 1945 that Germany could possess no military aircraft. After extracting the most technologically significant examples, the thousands left behind were slated for elimination between 1945 and 1948. Airfields transformed into massive scrapyards as crews methodically dismantled fighters, bombers, transports, and trainers. Disposal centers at places like Flensburg, Lübeck, Blankensee, Grove, and Tarnowitz processed enormous volumes. Intact airframes were stripped of usable components, crushed or torched. Others were barged offshore and scuttled, creating underwater graves occasionally rediscovered today. Economic imperatives drove much of this. Europe's acute metal shortages made aluminum and steel from Luftwaffe planes vital for reconstruction, supplying industries with raw materials for civilian goods and infrastructure. Scrapping operations also employed displaced workers during the turbulent post-war transition. Even dual-use types like the Ju-52 underwent scrutiny. While a few entered limited civilian service, most were scrapped for uniformity. In occupied zones, brief transitional uses occurred. France operated some German designs for training until parts dwindled, but policy prioritized total eradication. Historians debate the thoroughness of this phase. Many unique prototypes vanish forever due to limited museum capacity at the time, prioritizing security and denazification over heritage. By 1948, the overwhelming majority of Luftwaffe aircraft had vanished, runways cleared for occupation forces, agriculture, or civilian aviation. The few Luftwaffe designs that survived and served post-war. Despite widespread destruction, select German aircraft or derivatives found second lives abroad, driven by necessity or lingering utility. Czechoslovakia emerged as a primary operator, assembling incomplete airframes and parts from occupied factories into operational machines. The most notable was the Avia S-199, a hybrid Bf-109G fitted with Junkers Jumo 211 engines due to shortages of original Daimler-Benz power plants. Though notoriously tricky to handle, it equipped Czechoslovak squadrons until Soviet replacements arrived in the 1950s. 25 S-199s were exported to the fledgling Israeli Air Force in 1948, marking Israel's first fighters during its War of Independence, achieving victories despite challenges. Spain continued licensed production of the Bf-109 as the Hispano Aviation HA-1112, powered by indigenous engines, serving into the 1950s and famously doubling as Luftwaffe fighters in films like Battle of Britain. Norway briefly flew captured Bf-10-9s and Arado R-96 trainers for post-war rebuilding. France produced a Ju-52 variant, Toucan, for transport duties, and Lufthansa operated originals briefly in the early 1950s. When West Germany rearmed with the Bundesluftwaffe in 1956, it adopted NATO standard Allied designs like the F-84 Thunderstreak and F-104 Starfighter, eschewing wartime relics. Preservation efforts intensified later in the 20th century, recovering wrecks from crash sites, lakes, and battlefields. Today, only a handful of authentic Luftwaffe aircraft survive in museums worldwide. Examples of the Me-262, Bf-109, FW-190, and R-234 in places from the U.S. to Germany. Most airworthy Luftwaffe planes it shows are modern replicas. What remains represents a mere sliver of the vast arsenal scattered across Europe in 1945. A poignant testament to how rapidly advanced technology can fade and how the post-war order irrevocably transformed German aviation's legacy.